welcome back to Room 237. And yes, this is the new official Room 237. It's still got a ways to go before it's done, but I figured I got enough things put away and organized that it's at least functional. So I wanted to get this review done because this is a movie that's on Netflix, and I'm actually losing Netflix at the end of the month. But it's also an IFC film, and lately I've been going through films from A24 and IFC, and yes, when this room is done, I will do like a tour and show everyone what it looks like. So this is of a very different film actually, 2018's. It's a mixture of supernatural, western, say like Bone Tomahawk, and the sort of folk horror, kind of like Midsummer or The Other Lamb. It is 2018's The Wind. Now, this is one I had not heard of. I was just scrolling through Netflix to see what was on there. Then this popped up. And this is actually a directorial debut. Uh, Emma Tammy wrote. Well, I thought she wrote it, but I guess not. She directed the film. And I think she had done some acting, some producing. I think she had directed a couple documentaries, but it was written by Teresa Sutherland. And in the writing and the direction are two of the strongest points of this film. And it stars Caitlin Gerard, Ashley Zuckerman, Julia Goldani Tells, and Miles Anderson, with music by Ben Lovett. And the cinematography by Lynn Moncrief, if I pronounce that correctly. Yeah, for a directorial debut, this is a very, very effective, powerful film. And if you follow my channel, you know I'm a huge sucker for... I'm actually sitting in a chair at a desk now, not just a spot on the floor, so that's pretty nice. I'm a huge sucker for movies with very limited everything. This has an extremely limited cast. We have 4 main characters, 1 supporting character that's in a couple scenes, and then there's 1 or 2 scenes with maybe 2 or 3 non-speaking extras. So, very limited. But even then, most of the film is pretty much carried by our lead, Caitlin Gerard. She really does carry this film by herself, and she does an excellent job with it. If I had to pick one film to compare it to, I would probably say, even though it does have a lot of... It is a film that builds itself on isolation, paranoia. It's very ambiguous as to if the supernatural elements in this film are real or not. So a lot like The Shining. But if I really had to compare what it made me think of the most, it would be It Comes at Night from 2017. Which, if you saw my review for that, it was very positive. I loved It Comes at Night. There were a couple points where I thought when the supernatural elements really shined through, I thought it was kind of overdone to the point of feeling kind of like a mainstream kind of supernatural film. But then later on, there's a or some similar moments that's done in a different way that makes me think back to the previous ones. Okay, now it makes sense. It actually kind of fixes itself. Another thing that's very interesting about this is its narrative structure, because what most movies do when they do something like this, it'll open up with the aftermath, give a little bit of exposition, and then we'll have like a hard cut, and it'll say, 2 days earlier or 1 week earlier. and it will work its way up to the ending. Here, though, we stay in the present, but the story itself is pretty much told through a series of flashbacks. And it was kind of confusing at first. But it was very easy to get used to. Um, yeah, it was very easy to get used to. And then by the end, or towards the end, it actually got kind of hard to decipher whether we were in the present or a flashback. Now, I don't know if that was intentional, if that was something they tried to do to disorientate the viewer, or if it was just something I felt incidentally. Either way, it's very effective. If it wasn't intentional, normally I would say that's sort of sloppy or lazy uh, storytelling. But here it was effective. I really enjoyed this film. I really did. The score, it did have a couple loud moments, a couple jump scares. Other than that, the score is this very soft violin that I think, this very Western sound that I thought worked very well. Uh, yeah, other than that, I mean, it also is a very slow burn, which I'm a huge sucker for. It's a slow movie. It does. I mean, it's a short movie. It's only 86 minutes. It feels like a short sit, but it does feel like it takes a while for something to happen or make sense. But again, I'm a huge sucker for slower horror movies anyway. Basically, the film, it takes place in the late 19th century. There's these frontiersmen. There's uh, Lizzie and Isaac. They're a married couple. And they come from St. Louis to this desolate New Mexico land where there's no one around them. And they hope to start their own settlement. And I think they've been there like 8 years or something. I know they said they've been married for 8 years, but I'm not sure how long they've actually been in this area. But a lot of this movie does deal with what isolation can do to the human mind, the paranoia that it can cause, the disconnection from reality, the loss of reality. But after, if it's not 8 years, eventually this younger couple, Emma and Gideon, show up. And they're not as experienced with, living in the frontier. They come at an off time of year where it's not the best time to start your crops. But Isaac and Lizzie offer to help them. And Emma, I think they actually come from the city. I could be wrong. They came from Illinois, and they moved into a nearby cabin. And again, I don't know if they're from the city or if they just have less experience. But Lizzie and Isaac offer to help. And I think Emma starts to develop sort of a crush for Isaac because it hints that Gideon doesn't really know what he's doing and he doesn't really talk about Emma the best. And Isaac just seems like the typical sort of strong male that Emma feels she needs. Acting wise, I will say that Caitlin Gerard and whoever played Isaac, which was Ashley Zuckerman, they felt natural. They felt like they belonged in this time. Now, I didn't expect them to go full Robert Eggers with accents or ways of speaking, but with Emma and Gideon, they still sounded modern. Which kind of led me to believe this was going to have some crazy twist, which it kind of does. But more of like a Shyamalan twist where we're actually in the present day and they came from the city to live like this, and that's kind of why they sound the way they do. That's not the case, and I'm glad it's not. So I guess it's just more, they just happen to sound more modern. But Emma starts to go a bit crazy. The isolation starts to get to her while she gets pregnant. And she becomes pregnant around the same time. And the movie jumps back and forth between. It opens up with Emma's death. Emma apparently committed suicide. They had to cut the baby out of her. It didn't live. And actually, when we see Emma's body, it was actually kind of creepy. I mean, yeah, there's some CGI where her whole head, half of her head is missing, but her other eye is open, which is nothing we haven't seen before, but just the way it was done here, it was very eerie looking. So I applaud them for that, even with the CGI. So Emma committed suicide. The baby did not make it. And Lizzie wonders how Emma got her shotgun. Because it was with Lizzie's double barrel that she committed suicide with. And right then, Isaac has to either go to the city or go tend their crops and take care of their land. Which at this time, even going to the city could be a days long trip. Tending to the crops could be a full work week with Lizzie completely by herself. And it's pretty much all these weird happenings and sort of her descent into madness, while we get flashbacks of when Gideon and Emma show up and Emma's descend into her madness. It basically, it plays off of, is it real? Is it not? Is it all in their heads? Are they suffering from, maybe not really cabin fever, but suffering from the isolation and the disconnection from reality? And there are a couple lines about how the wind never stops, how the sound of the wind could drive them crazy. There is a scene with the Reverend, who's really our only other character. He's great in his couple scenes, but eventually, as the story unfolds, we see Emma, and for a while I was thinking, are they like Amish? Which was another reason why I thought maybe they're in modern times, but they've kind of maybe recently converted. Because, I mean, Gideon especially has the look, and Isaac has this very sort of religious view about what they can and cannot read. There's a couple pamphlets that show up. I think it's called like Demons of the Prairie or something, which I believe was a subtitle for this. Because I've seen some Blu-rays where it's titled like, it doesn't even say, The Wind, Demon of the Prairie, or something like that. And apparently there's was or is a promotional video game as well. I guess I could get into spoilers here because this is a fairly new movie and there is a twist. It's a twist you could probably see coming. It's not like a big wow twist, but yeah, this movie was very well done. I absolutely praise how it's shot, acted, its build up and its execution, the way it's edited, its music. I will say that the couple scenes I had issues with, there is a scene with the Reverend where it appears he's kind of possessed. His eyes go black, and there's like the not like the big mouth grave encounters screaming, but he screams and like almost looks like this black smoke is coming off him with ash and embers. Then like the shadows start to make these formations. And I thought, oh, we're kind of regressing to a mainstream kind of demonic film, which I wasn't a fan of. But then later on, the same thing happens to Isaac. And what happens in that scene kind of put it more into perspective about the whole, is it real, is it not? And kind of made me, it fixed itself, for me at least. And I also remembered that It Comes at Night had a similar scene as well. So it didn't really bother me. But, yeah, I thought this movie was excellent. Again, I'm a huge sucker for these more so artsy horror films. Which, it doesn't even feel that artsy up until the end. There's a couple shots at the end that are kind of strange, like with Lizzie being out in this field. It shows her up close, and when it pans out, she's in her bed in the middle of the field. Then it shows her up close again, then it pans back out, and there's no bed. But the slow burn, sort of a metaphorical, well, no, I wouldn't really say this is a metaphorical, but I would put this in the same realm as, it is a Western horror film, like Bone Tomahawk, but actually I think it had more in common with something like, certainly It Comes at Night, but the look of The Other Lamb, I would put this above Midsummer, because religion does play a part in it. But yeah, highly recommend it if you like these kinds of films. If you're more of the popcorn horror viewer, you're probably not going to like it. But if you really like the same kind of modern horror films that I like, I think you're really going to enjoy it. And I have nothing but praise for the director. Again, if this is her first time directing a film, she's someone I'm going to keep an eye out for, and I'll definitely want to see more of her work. But with that, I'm going to get into spoilers. So as it shows, well, in the present, it kind of shows Lizzie cleaning up the blood from having to cut the baby out of Emma. And it seems like wolves are starting to attack her. She has to isolate herself inside. One of her sheep is found mauled, completely mauled, but then later on the same sheep comes back and she has to shoot it. There's a lot that happens in between those two, though, but it shows when Emma and Gideon first arrive, and then how Lizzie and Isaac try to help them get a head start on their crops. And Emma takes a liking to Isaac. And eventually Gideon shows up saying Emma isn't well. They go to their cabin, Lizzie goes in, and Emma is hiding under the bed, saying something's coming after her, wants her baby. That's when they all find out she's pregnant. And she almost regresses to this childlike state, even where, because like Lizzie even has to chloroform her to get her to go to sleep. But it shows Emma laying in bed, saying like wanting to play a guessing game for what she's gonna name the baby. For a girl, Lizzie. For a guy, Isaac. And for Isaac, she's less specific as to why. Kind of hinting that she has this young girl crush on her almost, or that she's in love with him. While in the present, these noises, and sometimes the shadows will make like these long kind of branchy arms coming at her. She starts to wonder if Emma really did go crazy, or if there was something that she saw, something that was influential on her. Isaac is very adamant that there is nothing. He finds the pamphlets of the demons, which inside has all these demons' names and what their jobs are. Like, Babel, Keeper of Graves, this demon is, the demon of jealous thoughts, whatever. Which at one point Emma does repeat all of them nonstop. A reverend shows up, and Lizzie invites him in and then says, hey, there's no one at the Harper house if you want to go stay there, but don't open the door for anyone at night. And to Lizzie, yeah, most of the weird stuff happens at night. Again, we don't really see it, which really helps build the atmosphere. That's another very strong thing about this film, is the atmosphere. You really feel how isolated these characters are, and then just the big wide shots of the vast infinite fields that just go on forever. It looks beautiful. That night, the Reverend shows up again and acts like something's after him, or expresses that something's after him. And then he even says, like, because I think Lizzie says there's there really is nothing. The Reverend kind of, it seems like he goes to sleep, but he says, when Emma saw it, which how would he know? And then that's when his eyes go black and he stands up and screams. I do like the shot of when Emma runs outside. So we like see her running away from the house. The Reverend is like in the house away from the door, so we can't see him, but we see like this shadowy smoke coming off of him and kind of turning into these Lugosi hands. I don't really remember exactly how that sequence ends, but she does find the Reverend dead the next day outside. And eventually, she's going to go kill herself. She goes to the tree where her baby was stillborn, and they have a little plaque for it. And she's going to shoot herself at that tree, but that's when Isaac comes back. And, they clear out the Harper house, but they get a chest full of books, which one of the books has the demon pamphlet in it, even though he destroyed, he burnt this other one. She tries to explain to Isaac that Emma might not have been suicidal or insane. She might have seen something or been influenced. He won't have any of it. And then there are a couple scenes where she's in the house just at her wit's end, and just everything around her is going crazy. Windows are blowing in, things are blowing off shelves, and she's just screaming like, where are you, what do you want? But the scene that fixed the Reverend part for me was she's asking what's out there. Oh, because Isaac is standing back too, and on the ceiling she sees the shadow of the hands, and she says, there's something in here, it's going to get you, there's something in here. And he turns around and screams, there's nothing in here. He's got like the demonic face and the black eyes. He jumps on top of her. Oh, because he has her tied up because he thinks she's going mad, just as Emma did. And she stabs him in the neck. But after she stabs him, he's completely normal. So it's like, is this something she saw? Was Was it a manifestation of her insanity? Is there really some demonic activity going on? I don't think it ever really explains. And I appreciate that ambiguity as well. I'm a huge sucker for ambiguity too. There is a fine line between ambiguity and just laziness. And I'll say this is ambiguity. But also, the twist is Isaac finally asks her, because he sees that she's behaving similar to Emma when she was going crazy. And he asks her, like, how did Emma get your rifle? Or how did she find it? And that's when we get the flashback, because I don't even think Lizzie remembers this. But Emma is out on their property, kind of prancing like a child, talking about her baby. And how she told Gideon to leave, don't ever come back, that way it can just be the three of us. And even talks about how she's in love with Isaac. And how they can all be together, and Isaac will take care of her. And Lizzie, out of jealousy, shoots her. That's kind of the twist. So I think this whole movie is kind of... I think Emma went crazy due to isolation. And I think everything that happened to Lizzie is a manifestation of the guilt that she felt killing Emma over an act of jealousy. And so then that's when she's tied to the bed, kills Isaac, makes her way out, and it ends with her just sitting in the field alone. And yeah, this part was a little over the top, but you do kind of have to have a climax. When she's getting lifted up and down, she lands on a table, and that's when a pair of scissors go into her. But, so she is stabbed, but... And there are moments like that that you can't really explain, that kind of make you go, well, maybe there is something supernatural happening. You know, the Shining has those as well. But there are moments that can go either way, whether it be she's crazy or it's supernatural. Some that's obvious that they're going crazy, and then some that are really hard to explain, like, well, it's got to be supernatural, but no concrete answers. But that's where I think Emma went crazy to the isolation. Emma shot her out of jealousy from her love of Isaac. And then everything that happened to Lizzie was her going crazy over the guilt. And that's 2018's The Wind. And I really enjoyed it. Again, for a directorial debut, very well made. I mean, obviously, I like movies like The Witch more, which is another movie I would compare this to. I would say The Witch is superior in every way, but this is still pretty damn close. And probably one of the best directorial debuts since The Witch. So I have a few more reviews of this kind that I want to get to. I do want to do IFC's I Trapped the Devil. I want to do IFC's The Feast, which I think is 2022. I watched that. I really enjoyed it. There's some older films I want to get to. Eventually, I will finish this room and do a tour. I am seeing X tomorrow, and I will be doing a review of that. So there's another A24 film. But yeah, IFC's The Wind from 2018. Another example of why I love films by IFC. It's not A24, but I think A24 and IFC have always been kind of similar. And why I love these more slower, more artistic, independent horror films. But yeah, I loved it. I thought it was awesome. And thank you for watching.